Goodison Park, the place that we came as children, the place some of us bring our children, the place we always go to for the good times and the bad. It's sad in a way that this will be probably the final one of 2 seasons that Everton play at this old stadium, so I'm delighted to be allowed in to speak to my good friend, Everton surname royalty, the daughter of Colin Harvey, my friend Mel Harvey. We're going to talk about all the, dare I say, good times that we have had here, and there have been plenty. Welcome to Across the Park podcast at Goodison Park. Across the Park podcast is proud to be sponsored by Globe Gas and Heating. For the best kitchen and bathroom renovations, boiler servicing and repair, and central and underfloor heating in the Northwest, head over to globecentralheating.com and quote Across the Park for a free quote. Hello everybody, welcome to a very, very special edition of Across the Park podcast on location at one of the most amazing places in the world, in my opinion. Delighted to be joined by someone whose surname is Everton royalty, my friend, the daughter of the legend, Mr. Colin Harvey. Mel, thanks for coming back on. How are you?
I'm good. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Isn't it lovely today? Yeah. The picture's looking perfect. Goodison just looks majestic. And there's a memory in every single corner of this stadium, isn't there?
Without that, we're going to talk about that. But it's a lovely summer's evening. We're just about to start the season. We're not going to talk current. But we are going into what is probably going to be maybe the last or the penultimate season that Everton play football at Goodison Park. You're a big Evertonian. What's your first memories of Goodison?
I was thinking about this when the last couple of days, actually, since you asked me to do this, and I was racking my brains, and I don't remember the first time I came to Goodison, which is a weird thing for a football fan to say, because most people have a really, really clear memory. My first...
You must have been young then, I imagine.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the problem. So, I mean, as I say, there's memories all over the place, but my earliest memories are coming to watch reserve team matches.
Okay.
When Dad was the reserve team coach. Possibly came younger than that. Maybe not. It wasn't so fashionable to bring very young children to football matches. And obviously Dad went to Sheffield Wednesday when I was really, really young, when I was a toddler. So I maybe didn't come before then.
Yeah.
But I remember we used to sit up there watching.
The main stand? Yeah,
they'd open a part of the main stands for the reserve team games. I was watching some good reserve teams.
By the way, a good team, that, because that was in the early 80s before your dad became first team.
So we're talking early 80s, so we'd be talking Neville Southall in goal. Kevin Ratcliffe was probably playing for the reserves. Graham Sharp will have been playing for the reserves, and others. So I very, very distinctly remember Neville Southall was the reserve team goalkeeper for that whole period. When I was coming, I used to come with my granddad and my granddad's friend Norman, and I used to get an Eccles cake at half time. And they are my earliest memories of watching football at Goodison Park. Earlier memories than that would be the staff children's Christmas parties.
Right, okay.
Which took part in the Players' Lounge, which is kind of underneath there somewhere, which is now a sponsors' lounge. And the legendary groundsman, Dougie Rose,
I know the name,
was our Father Christmas. Very sadly lost Dougie a few months ago. And I had a laugh with his daughter, Julie, about, he was the best Father Christmas, better than the real thing.
I don't think many people have a memory of one of the first memories of Goodison being with Father Christmas. That's quite a unique memory.
And it was Mrs. Search, who was one of the directors' wives. She used to organise the Christmas parties, and they weren't just for players' children; they were for staff children as well.
Right.
So we used to come along to that. I remember getting a toy cooker one year off Dougie Rose, Father Christmas.
Oh, brilliant!
So really, really special memories. Non-football wise, then into the reserves, and then obviously come 1984 started coming to first team games.
Yeah, mine's not too dissimilar to yours in the reserve fashion, because probably early 90s. Now my mum and dad, we were practically poor, So I was always someone who had last season's Everton kit in PE, and I was always someone that my dad really wanted to take me to football, but he could never quite afford it.
It's so expensive.
Even back then, and I think early 90s was when the city was going through or just coming out of a really bad time. My family were on the end of a lot of that, and we were really struggling for money. So my dad somehow found out, I think it was in the Pink Echo, that it was kids for the quid, for the reserves. And he took me to a couple of reserve games in the main stand, and Jimmy Gabriel was the manager. And it was a team that wasn't very good, but it was my first insight to and I was asking questions like, why is it empty? And I didn't quite grasp, and I must have been around maybe about 7, and then we upgraded to, do you remember 3/4 time?
Oh, yes.
So the fans, for anyone who's watching doesn't quite, I think the world's changed now, about 75 minutes, the gates maybe still do open. We don't encourage anyone to do this, by the way, but the gates will open, and if Everton were getting beat, which in the early 90s a lot of times was the case, people could run in and take their seats. And I mean, a vivid memory, I always remember it. It was 1994, and we were getting beat 1-0 by Arsenal. We must have got in the last 5 minutes in the main stands. My dad just sat me down, and everyone were pushing. And Peter Beardsley crossed in for Tony Cottee, and I just latched on. And then, God love me, Dad, it wasn't until I was really in senior school, years later, that we could really afford to get a season ticket. But I always wanted to go. And this place became, I've got to go there. How do I get there? And we'd get the bus down. I didn't live too far away. We'd get the bus down with my friends, and we'd climb the trees in Stanley Park, and the old park. And when it was lower, you could see it. All the stuff that young lads were, but it was all about this place. Was it a bit like that for you? You're always looking forward to coming to the game? And
yeah, well, obviously, you know, we grew up in an Everton family, so my dad worked here. So it put a slightly different slant on it, but he'd tell you the stories of coming here from when he was a boy, and, you know, coming with my granddad, going in the boys' pen, and my granddad going in the Gladys Street and meeting by the pawnbrokers afterwards. And so it was always very much, and then my mum talking about she moved to Liverpool when she was 17, and she lived in Hale Road in Walton, and she started coming to Goodison Park. So all these tales were like legendary. You know, I remember seeing Pele and, you know, and obviously the great Everton teams, but all these tales of Goodison Park and match day rituals and all that kind of thing. So yeah, as soon as I was able to come, and it was, you know, the reserve teams, obviously, it was just so exciting. And even then, when you came in and it was quite empty, unless you were playing Liverpool, it was a mini derby. Obviously, it would echo round.
It's open under the stands, wouldn't it, or something? Yeah.
But even those reserve team games, it was exciting. It was Goodison Park. It was Everton. You were still watching Everton play. Yeah. And it was still really, really exciting. And there was still match day rituals. You know, we still went to, you know, take kids and pubs. I think you probably still can now, can't you? And you know,
absolutely, you can.
You're allowed.
My wife who's watching, you can,
You're allowed a can of shandy, and as I say, the Eccles cake at half time, and all those things. And yeah, and then as soon as you moved on to the first team, then it became addictive, didn't it? You had to come to every game then, and you know, didn't matter what age you were. If there was like your friends were having parties and stuff like that, it was like
and you drive past and stare at it.
Oh God, I still do.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I still do. Sometimes if I'm coming home from work, and I don't know if you've had a bit of a bad day or if it's a nice night like this, I'll come this way and I'll drive down Goodison Road and just have a little look. And you know, if you're ever driving up and down County Road and you get stopped at the lights, you always
that street where you see the badge.
You peek up the street so you can get a glimpse of the stadium. And I've lived in Glasgow for a long time and come down with friends for Aintree races and things, and we'd go into town afterwards and we'd be in a taxi on the way home and it'd be, come on, we'll go via Goodison, and we'd all be getting out and taking pictures outside. That was before the statue was up, and by the timelines and things like that. I've got many drunken pictures taken at 3 o'clock in the morning after we've been out after the races with the girls from Glasgow. So yeah, it's a special place, and for all of us, isn't it?
But I want to close the show on sort of how we will remember this, because I think this show will be timeless, and people will hopefully, our families will look back on it and stuff in the future and go, that was a great show. That's the aim. So I want to talk about good times. I've got to say good times because there's been plenty of good times at Goodison Park, and I want to maybe do a top 3 different categories. Let's start with the games. When you go through games, maybe not in order, but can you think of 3 games that jump out straight away?
Yeah. So the first game, and this is going to be a bit of a strange one, but we'd won the FA Cup in 1984. Dad had been promoted to work with the first team. Yeah. Came to the first game of the season here after that, and I remember I had my cap. We all got caps for the FA Cup. I had the cap on, and I would have been 11, 12, and came with my granddad, and we got beat 4-1.
It's the Dublin game of the season, was it? Yeah.
Yeah. And I just couldn't believe it. It was just like,
What's happening here? Proper Everton.
this is mad.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on? Obviously, it all turned around after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it just sticks in my mind so much because after the absolute elation of Wembley and then the Charity Shield, and I remember coming back and, you know, tours around the city with cups and all that kind of thing. And then you come to the opening game of the season and you get beat 4-1. And it was just
Was
mad.
everyone like it full time? Was it like a bit, what's happened here? Or?
Yeah, I think there was a bit of a distance. Certainly was among us. And I remember I was staying at my nana and granddad's and we went back and we were just like, you know, my nana was like, what's going on? I don't know. I think we got some fish and chips to try and cheer ourselves up. I don't think we watched Match of the Day.
No.
And I know if I used to stay there on a Saturday night, my dad would always ring my granddad for a bit of a post-mortem, you know.
Yeah.
That went on. That was a long post-mortem.
A long phone call.
Yeah, that was a long phone call. My granddad used to sit, classic, they had the phone at the bottom of the stairs and he used to sit on the bottom of the stairs and that was a long post-mortem. But obviously things changed a bit.
Yeah.
And probably, if you're talking about 3 games, that sticks in my memory for all those strange reasons. But the classic, as I'm going to move on to the second one I'll go to, is when we beat Man United 5-0.
Yeah. Was that season or season after?
No, that was that
same
season. That was
around October, was it? Yeah.
October 1984. And, you know, it's Man United.
Yeah.
You know, I know Liverpool would our greatest rival, but Man United, you know, the glamour club, the big team, this massively successful team. And we beat them 5-0 and we just looked unbeatable.
Yeah.
Absolutely unbeatable. And I think by the time I can't even remember who scored the 5th goal. Who scored towards the end?
You can tell us in the comments. We'll forgive.
Yeah. Sorry about that. But I think by that point, we just felt absolutely, completely, and utterly unbeatable that day. And clearly, it turns out to be a really, really good season.
The juggernaut there, wasn't it? The start of.
Yeah. I mean, it was just that day. We were just on top so much. I think there was a comment in one of the papers, one of the match reports, talking about how Everton cut through Man United like a butter knife, and that's what it was like. Every time we attacked, you felt like we were going to score, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful performance, and one that I'll never ever forget.
Yeah, the crowd were with them all game.
It was Man United, you know, and it just felt. It was at that moment, I think there was a lot of belief after that. It was like, right, okay, that's it now. 5-0.
Yeah. Look, we'll maybe do 1-1 because I've got an idea here that I think I know where you're going, and you're going to absolutely trump me because unfortunately,
I'm older than you.
Well, you said it. Mel said it, not me. But that's where I was trying to go. So, one of my first games, linking on from the story before, was Joe Rowe's first game as manager. A Monday night, November, and we played Liverpool, and my dad, God love him, we had to come back in the old days in the street ends. They used to announce the game or two prior. If you go to the home game, you get the voucher for the Merseyside derby. So my dad took me to Arsenal at home in around October. We got the voucher for the derby and he queued up and he got the tickets. They were the days of no phones and internet. Well, there was phones, but the phone lines weren't that good and credit card payments didn't really exist. So we had to queue. God love me, queued and we got tickets. And all my mates in school were like, Everton were bottom and Liverpool were top or second. And even at that young age, it was just unbearable. And I just kept saying, Dad, we are going to win, aren't we, Dad? And he was like, of course we are. And you see him looking at him, I'm like, God, I don't know whether to take him to this. And I sort of realised a little bit when I knew what was going on. I knew we weren't very good. And I'd been to a few games that season when we weren't very good. Mike Walker had been sacked. That night was just, for me, as a young Evertonian, sat in the Gladys Street. And we were sort of at the back. So at that age, I had to stand on my seat.
So you wouldn't have
and my
seen
dad
much.
had his arm around me.
Yeah.
And it was at that end where Big Duncan put it in. And then Big Duncan knocked it down for Paul Ryds out to make it 2. And I think it was raining all. It was cold and it was electric. And for me as a young boy there, I was like, I am just in love, not only with this football club, but this place. Another game for...
Well, I'm just, before we move on to that, I'm just about to say you're very lucky because I was probably watching Oldham.
Your dad was at Oldham, yeah, of course.
They'd swapped.
Yeah.
They'd almost swapped. So yeah,
of course,
I think...
with Sharpie.
Yeah. And I remember it was his 50th birthday and it wasn't after that match, but I think it was after their first game at Oldham. I remember Joe coming and Everton had been at home that day.
Yeah.
We'd all been at Oldham, so there you go. So yeah. No, so if we're talking the best Goodison Park game ever for me, as you know, it's the Bayern Munich game, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
And we were just talking as we walked in, we were sat over in the main stand, over down towards
Yeah.
the park ends, which was kind of been where we'd been sitting for a while that season.
Crammed in, I guess.
Well, I mean, there's famously people say there was double the attendance that night. I don't think it was quite that many, but certainly it was a case of we were moving over and then we were moving over and we were moving
moved down,
over.
let me get in.
I was with my mum and my sister. I don't think our Emma came. She was probably too young, so it was our Joanna. And I think by the end of it, the three of us were like literally on a seat and a half.
Yeah.
And everyone was just crammed in and sitting on the stairs. And I felt like the stand was moving. I felt like, the seats were probably moving. It felt like the whole place was rocking.
Yeah.
I must have been, it was 1985, so I was 13. So still relatively young, and I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, I'd thought that the atmosphere at Wembley for the FA Cup final had been electric, but that was just something else. The noise, the adrenaline that was rushing through you, and then just the sheer joy. Obviously, the first half, second half was a complete contrast, and there's the famous, Howard said, "Let the Gladys Street suck it in." The noise was just.
Would you look down at your dad? Would you always look down and try and see him, or would you just concentrate on the football?
I don't know whether you could see, because the dugouts weren't like this. They were like a little mini bus shelter, weren't they? Yeah. And they had a roof on them. I mean, he was probably out there shouting and screaming quite a lot of the time.
Is that famous video where they're both like that, out the dugout?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I say about him shouting and screaming, he didn't do a lot of that. I mean, I think he's very much got a belief that once they're out on the pitch, the team really needs to, the players need to rely on themselves, really. I mean, the professional footballers, aren't they? There's not a lot, unless you want to make a tactical change or something, there's probably not a lot you can do. But it was some night, and just that noise, and when the final whistle, just the feeling of jubilation.
No, imagine.
And it was almost as though I wasn't allowed to go to the final.
Why?
Never forgive me for that, Dad.
This is your chance to get him back.
Too young and too much schoolwork, apparently.
Oh, God.
He does actually say he regrets it now, but I wasn't allowed to go. Simon Kendall wasn't allowed to go either, and so we're both very bitter about that.
I imagine.
Simon wasn't allowed to go either. So, much bitterness from the pair of us. Whenever we meet, we always bring it up. So for me, obviously, the Bayern, and I think for a lot of people, the Bayern Munich game almost felt like the final. Clearly, a lot of people couldn't go to Rotterdam for many different reasons, not just having over-strict parents. That night, it doesn't get any better than that, does it?
It's crazy, because again, we'll link it a little bit, and one of your best nights there, I grew up on that VHS. My dad would say to me, "Well, watch this, if Everton got beat or whatever, or it was a Sunday and Mum was out, and back in these days, you had 4 channels and a VHS, and that Bayern Munich tape was, I'm surprised it wouldn't
worn out.
And you'd watch it, and that was always something again. It's mad how generations can link up just through one place. But again, we're definitely not comparing here, because I'll lose every time. If I think of another game that comes to mind, it would be a similar scenario. It was 2005 when Everton were trying to limp over the line to qualify for the Champions League around April time, and we were limping over the line. And we had Manchester United. Wayne Rooney I think Wayne Rooney came back 2 months prior in a cup game, and he had all sorts of, abuse. And he got it again that night. It was a nighttime game, and Big Duncan again at the street end scored. And honestly, it was like someone just let a bomb off. And it just added the Rooney thing, because Rooney was young at the time, and he was biting. He was biting back. He was having little nibbles, and
it must have been very hard for him, because
of course, he was 18, and he's getting grown men chatting about his family and things. Absolutely, but things like that can sometimes add the atmosphere in a weird way. You don't condone it at all, but
no, I get it.
And then it's more electric. And then when that full-time whistle blew, at this point I'm a man, and I can go for a pint. And we went for a pint, and there's people in there going, "It hasn't been like this in the Winslow for years. It hasn't been like this. Trust me, I can enjoy it." And that's something a game I'll always remember. Sometimes there's weird games where you remember the build-up. Walking down from the old Elm Tree, I remember it. Someone saying Rooney's playing, and everyone's singing Everton songs down Spellow Lane. And it's just games. Is it like that for you? Not just a game. You have some vivid memories of before and after.
Moments. Definitely moments.
I do want to get to moments. I don't
really remember a lot about after that Bayern Munich game. I think I just was probably so overwhelmed, and I was quite young. I think I was probably just so overwhelmed. I remember going to school the next day and I was absolutely shattered. It was like
you'd played.
Yeah, and just felt, but I don't really remember the moments immediately after the game finished. I think the game was just so overwhelming. It was probably just all the adrenaline leaving your body and everything else. But yeah, it's your little rituals and things that always stick in the mind for me. It's those moments, like, you know, the Eccles cake with my granddad, the getting snuck into the Albert pub on the way home after matches with him. They're the really happy memories for me.
I'm chasing toffee lady, trying to get toffees, chasing them around. If you're on the Goodison Street, you'd go from the church to the Bullens and try and...
I know, just for an Everton.
Yeah, crazy.
It's really just like going to KFC with my mum and my sister after the match. We used to park up near where she used to live, actually. And so afterwards, we very lucky you could go at the Players' Lounge for a little while after the match. And then, but we couldn't park here. We used to park miles away because it's so hard to get parked.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, sometimes we'd come on, we'll go to KFC for a treat. I don't even eat chicken anymore. I went vegetarian quite soon after that. But
Come to your old chicken.
Yeah, just little memories like that. Just happy memories coming. Obviously, we lost my sister sort of more than 10 years ago now. And remember just coming to the match with her. She wasn't really the biggest football fan, but we all, we'd come together and coming with my mum and my sisters and with my granddad before that. They're the things that really stick in my mind. Waiting for the Pink Echo, getting sent round to the shop for the Pink Echo on a Saturday night, desperate to get it because there was no Sky Telly, so you'd listen to Radio City.
6 o'clock waiting for the van.
Yeah, you'd listen to Radio City in the car on the way home because you'd get all the after-match interviews and everything. Then you'd get home, and then it was straight round to the shop to get the Pink Echo. And yeah, they're the kind of really special memories for me. Obviously, individual games, but those rituals, and it just was so much part of childhood days.
Yeah, mine was Football Focus, and then my dad would buy me the programme, and I'd read it from front to back.
Yeah.
Have to.
Front to back, absolutely.
Just to end on the games, is there another game that you want to bring to mind? I did say 3. I know you've probably got more than 3. And not necessarily your top 3, but it's another one that springs to mind, a game where you've... Oh, God, I'd love to relive that.
Relive that one. Probably the games, the games when the trophies got lifted.
Oh, of course.
Watching at that point the match doesn't matter, but sitting seeing Kevin Ratcliffe lift up the trophy more than the actual game. The only other one really, and it's not a game particularly to remember, although we did win the game, was May 2019 when the Holy Trinity statue got unveiled, and we played Burnley, I think. Yeah, Burnley, and it was a Friday night.
It was a Friday night game, yeah.
And we won 2-0. And funny enough, looking back on match reports, talking about pushing for a Europa place. No, anyway. But what really sticks in my memory about the game, I don't really remember much about the game, if I'm being honest, because of all the emotion of the event beforehand, but was me and my sister taking my niece and nephew out onto the pitch before the game, and the 1878s had done a banner, a Holy Trinity banner, and that's very special.
That's very special.
That's really, really special.
Yeah,
I
can never trump that, but I'm going a polar opposite, and I hate the fact that this is a game that was special to me. It would be the Crystal Palace game a couple of years ago, because I think I've said to you, because we've been mates for a while now, I was having sleepless nights. I was really worrying about it, because bringing up my little boy, he was 3 at the time, and I was lying to him over how good Everton, where I was coming home from the match. He's like, Daddy, never win. And I was lying to him in my teeth. And for some reason, I just felt enormous pressure of like, if this goes really wrong, I'm going to bring him into this. And then I've got a little daughter since. And that Palace game, I just remember when Everton scored the 3rd goal, I sit in the park end now. Really good view of Dominic Calvert-Lewin scoring the 3rd goal, hugging everyone around me. And I remember just looking back at the pitch, and it was like an out-of-body experience of like, there was stewards on the pitch ushering fans off, there was pyro, there was tannoy going, get off the pitch, there was stewards around the players, and you were just looking like a war zone. And I was just like, please, come here, and a full-time whistle. And I've got no bones about saying it. I did go, that Crystal Palace game, I went onto the pitch, and I just hugged my mates, and I was like, and we know what came since, I was like, never again can he put us through this. But I say that game just because of how I felt, if that makes sense. The feeling of...
I felt the same. I was with my cousin. I sit with my cousin. We got our season ticket to the back of the main stand up there. And, you know, me and our Matty have been Evertonians all our lives and been to a lot of games together, been to a lot of the same games when he used to have a season ticket in the Goodison. And we felt the same. We hugged and you know, we celebrated. And I look back now, I'm a little bit ashamed that I was celebrating, if I'm being honest, because we shouldn't really have been celebrating, because although we did stay up, we very nearly got relegated.
But do you know what, Gary, who's at the podcast, sorry to interrupt, what he likens it to, and this is the best analogy I've ever heard. He says, have you ever been in a situation where you're waiting for money to hit, to pay your staff or pay your bills, and it hits last minute, and you've got that, oh my God. And you do have that emotion the next day, you go,
all the money's gone. And then you have to start again.
Yeah. And you know, I shouldn't have celebrated that, but that moment in time was...
Oh no, I mean, we celebrated, and we didn't really celebrate the end of the last season there.
No, me neither.
Because we were a little bit too angry. Yeah. But we did celebrate, and I think it was a huge relief, as you say. I was exactly the same. I didn't sleep for about 2 weeks, barely sleeping. And you know, I'd had a really, really stressful time leading up to that. My husband had been extremely, really, really seriously ill. And the fact that I was having sleepless nights over football makes me quite ashamed now, because I'm thinking, goodness me. But he gets it, it's fine. Yeah. He's a big football fan as well. But yeah, it was. I think it was more a relief, wasn't it? And it was a release. Yeah. It's stressful if you're going into a big game and you need to win for a good reason. It's stressful if you're going into a big game you need to win not to be relegated. You know, it's stressful going to a cup final.
And here adds to it as well, doesn't it? Being here,
yeah, there. Yeah, it's stressful. The Bayern Munich game, that was stressful.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But we were celebrating for a different reason. But I get you about the Palace game. It was memorable, and it was something to celebrate at the end in a sense. So I do understand, and I had all the same emotions. Yeah.
There's been some amazing players, and again, it's going to be quite not embarrassing, but I wouldn't put my five-a-side team against yours. But that way, you've seen a lot better than I am. I'll give you 3 quick players of mine, then we'll expand on yours. Okay. Simply for what they give me emotion-wise in certain games, I'd go for Duncan Ferguson and Tim Cahill. Thought they were when they played for Everton, we had a chance. No matter who we played.
I won't argue with you on that.
If you got them fit, and the ability, the best player I've seen would be Neville Southall.
Yeah.
I've got Alan Ball on my shirt here, and my dad used to say, it's Bally and it's Neville. Like, there's just 2 players who were them. He always said Bally and Neville. So for me, Neville Southall was unbelievable. Is there 3 players straight away that you think, what a pleasure to watch them here?
Well, I'm going to give you 3 outfields, and then I'm going to go Neville as well.
That's fine.
Because I don't think goalkeepers are footballers. I think they're part of the team, but they're a completely different beast. They have to train differently. They have to have a completely different mindset. They don't play football, do they? They're part of a football team, but they don't play football. Neville is by far and away one of the best people that I know as a person. He's one of the most honest, decent, dependable people. He's one of the most hard-working people in his life, and that came through into his football. You're talking about a man who was a refuse collector. You know, he's just a hard worker, and he put all that effort and ability and hard work as a man, as a person, into becoming the best goalkeeper. He was the best goalkeeper in the world.
Absolutely.
You know, if Everton hadn't been banned, or English clubs hadn't been banned from Europe, and he hadn't played for Wales, he would have been heralded.
All-time great, yeah.
So if he'd have been an England goalkeeper, or if he'd have been, you know, France's goalkeeper, or, you know, Brazil's goalkeeper, he would have been regarded as the best goalkeeper in the world. And then my 3 outfield players, Kevin Ratcliffe.
Okay.
Just one of the best defenders I've ever seen, and the way that he could get back, and that team played that very high pressing game, and the way he could get back, I just thought he was brilliant. And he was a great leader. He was a brilliant captain. And then I'm moving into midfield. Trevor Steven.
I thought you were going to say your dad.
No, I never saw him.
Of course,
really. Really, I mean, I probably did, but I don't really remember. But Trevor Steven for me was just immense. Do you
think he gets enough credit, Trevor Steven?
No, not at all. It's strange. There's a couple of players from those teams that don't get enough credit. Paul Bracewell. I'd probably be stuck between Paul Bracewell and Trevor Steven, to be honest. But Trevor Steven could play anywhere. Yeah. He started off as a defender. He could play central midfield. You could play him up front. He could play anywhere. He was classy. He was pacey. He could tackle as well. He he was just brilliant.
Yeah.
He was just absolutely brilliant, and he was also pretty cool as well. And he was one of the younger ones in that team.
Is.
And
We've seen him now. He still looks...
Yeah, he's very cool. You know, and he was into his music, and he was just a brilliant footballer. He probably my favourite. I loved Graham Sharp. I had posters of Graham Sharp on the wall when I was a kid because he was just the goal scorer, and he was the centre forward, wasn't he? And I loved him as well. But Trevor was probably my favourite. When I look back, he was probably my favourite out of that team. And then I'm going to jump a bit, and I'm going to say my other player who I absolutely loved was Pat Nevin.
Yeah.
And again, for loads of reasons, I just thought he was a brilliant footballer, dead hard working at his football.
That signed him, didn't he?
Yeah. Dead hard working at his football, dead hard working in training, and again, just one of the nicest, best people that I know.
The crowd loved Pat, didn't he? He was a crowd favourite.
Yeah, and he was a very, very clever footballer. He was a very classy, very clever footballer. But what I think the crowd appreciated as well was his work rate, his effort. And I mean, that just wasn't on the pitch, that was in training as well. I mean, I don't know if you've read his book, but he talks about the extra training he would do. And obviously, you know, huge music fan, put me onto a couple of bands, told me the bars to go to when I moved to Glasgow as a student, and still keep in touch with them to this day. And he's just one of the nicest people that I know. So they'd probably be my picks.
I wouldn't argue. Like I said, it was a five-a-side. I think
Neville
might get in.
Mine's not a very balanced team there, actually, is that I've picked 2 midfielders and 2 right wingers, actually. But Trevor could play anywhere.
Yeah. My dad used to say about the Everton team, and he said Stephen and Stevens, it's great straight hand side.
And the way they crossed over, and they really complemented each other, and they understood each other. And then sadly, they both left to go to Rangers at the same time as well. But that was the European ban for you.
Killed us, absolutely killed us.
And David Murray and all his money.
So let's not go there. Let's keep it positive. Yes. Let's keep it nice and positive. Sometimes we've talked about games and we've talked about players, but sometimes there's moments that are lost that it may have not been part of the greatest game or the greatest team or the greatest day. So I'll just touch upon a few moments again. I'll fire three quick ones at you, and then we'll go into yours. Wayne Rooney scoring his first goal. I thought everyone in this stadium that day thought we've got something special. Because every now and then you do hear about names, and I won't say different names, of players who he's going to be the next. And I think there was a bit of hesitation with Wayne because we've had a few prior. We've heard this before with X, Y, and Z. But and the start of that season, he was great, but he hadn't scored. And he was 16. And he plucked the ball out of thin air and he put one past David Seaman and everyone. I think that moment is everyone knows where they were sitting or where they were when that happens. Another one, and this is strange, but I was one of the lucky people who, when the ground started reopening after COVID and he had pockets of fans, we had 6,000 versus Wolves in May.
I was at that game.
And I missed the 3. We had United in the Carabao Cup. We had Arsenal and Chelsea all in December. And I missed a ballot for all 3.
Me too.
And I got that one.
I got that one as well.
And to walk into that ground
brilliant. What a moment.
Because you don't know what you've got.
No.
Sometimes I'm guilty of this, and I'm sure maybe you are and others are. You'll come to this place and sometimes it's a routine. Sometimes you get here 10 minutes early, you'll sit in your seat and you'll just go home, and everyone that's fine. Everyone can do that. But what I'm trying to get at is you don't realise what you've got until it's gone.
Yeah.
And I think Everton had a good team that season as well. We had Carlo in a dugout, and James Rodriguez had his paintbrush out, and Dominic was having a great season. And just to get in. And I remember this video. And it was just crazy.
Yeah, I was sat up there and I came on my own, and I parked at my friend's house in Great Home Street, and I walked down, and it was that exciting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was just on my own, and then I saw the guys, the food bank guys. I was having a chat with them, and then I went and got myself a portion of chips. And they let me bring the chips, and everyone was being really nice. I was like, "Can I take my chips?" And they were like, "Yeah, you can take your chips."
Colin's daughter.
And then when we came in, they handed you a bottle of water and a Mars bar.
Yeah.
So for my tea that night, I had a portion of chips, a bottle of water, and a Mars bar, and I was just delighted.
I forgot about Mars bar and a bottle of water.
Because there was no snack bars open or anything. Yeah. So they handed you a bottle of water and a Mars bar. So yeah, and I was just sat on my own up there, and I think I saw someone I knew. I can't remember now. Sitting, but you weren't really allowed to move, were you?
No.
I think I snuck down, had a bit of a chat with them, and then went back to my seat, and it was near where we normally sit. But my cousin and my uncle weren't allowed to come because they lived in West Lancashire, and I don't think they were allowed to enter the ballot for some reason.
Oh, right, okay.
So, because I live in Merseyside, I could have, and I think by that point that rule had passed, but they hadn't gone in the original ballot. It was something complicated like that, so that's why I ended up on my own. But yeah, the bottle of water and the Mars bar.
Yeah, I was taking a video of just walking in. It was empty concourse, and just sending it to the lads that sit next to him, the season ticket.
Yeah.
Saying, look where I am in the concourse and no one else is
so
here.
So exciting.
And they only just do the one that top of the head is, remember, again, like a bomb went off and Mikel Arteta scored past Fiorentina.
Oh, gosh.
And I remember I was at the game and I sat in the street end, and again, it was chaos and we got beat on pens that night. But when we watched it back at the other highlights, and the commentator says, as the camera's bouncing, this place is literally bouncing. Yeah. And for me, that was just a moment in time where I just thought, this is special, like this being here. Any little moments like that stands out for you?
Definitely the COVID one was the same for me. I was so excited to just be back at Goodison, and I think I'd got one of the previous ones and then something changed and you couldn't come or something.
Same as me, West Ham.
Yeah.
West Ham and Man City as well.
I got one and then it changed and you weren't able to come.
Same as me, yeah.
And then I hadn't got one of the other ones. And then when I got the one, but the same, it was just that excitement of, it was the release of being able to do stuff, I think, as well. But being able to come back to football was huge, wasn't it?
Cars in the ground.
Yeah, and I just think that we missed us winning at Anfield. I know. It's just cruel, isn't it? It's absolutely cruel. So yeah, coming back after COVID was definitely one for me. I can't ever go out past like the statue being unveiled. Yeah. That was a very, very special moment. Another special moment was, and I can't tell you exactly when it was, but when they unveiled the Hillsborough Memorial at the Park Ends.
Kenny Dalglish did as well, yeah.
Dad and Kenny Dalglish did it. And I was living in Glasgow at the time, but I was either home for some other reason or I came specially for it. This is quite a funny story. So we came, and it was my sister Emma and I and my dad all came to the match, and we went down, and him and Kenny unveiled the memorial. And it was really, really special. And some of the families were in a lounge in the Park End beforehand. I'm very privileged to get to meet them. And it was a really, really nice moment. And it was nice to see Dad and Kenny doing that together. And then I don't remember anything about the game, I'm going to be honest, but the actual unveiling of that statue was a really, really nice moment. The plaque in the wall up there was a really nice moment, yeah.
And do you know what, just before we move away from that, I think it's important, I feel quite embarrassed by not bringing this up, but the way Evertonians and the staff here reacted to the Justice campaign when Liverpool fans got justice with a game against Newcastle, I think where the Liverpool fans were first abolished from blame, and they had the two children were 9 and 6 in Liverpool, and he ain't heavy, and it was just like, really nice. This is beyond football, and I'm getting it now.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
When in 2016 we done it again with the families came on the pitch against Bournemouth.
It was
and
lovely.
He played the same song, and you're just like, this place, man, it just touched.
Yeah, it was lovely. That was another really, really lovely moment, and the unveiling of that plaque was a really, really lovely moment. And another one that sticks in my mind is when the war in Ukraine first started. Yeah. And it was a very awful and emotional thing anyway. But the fact that we have a Ukrainian player, he's so young, and I just remember feeling really heartbroken for him and thinking, all the money in the world doesn't change the fact that you've got family living in that environment. And I remember us playing
City, because Zinchenko was the same.
Exactly, and we played Give Peace a Chance. Yeah. And I thought that was a really, really beautiful moment. And I think that's something that we do really well as a community at Everton, I think, and that comes from the fans. The club do it. But it's because the fans are so inclusive and such good people, and that was a really, really special moment for me as well. And I think as well, other special moments for me are the sort of when the food bank, fans supporting food banks,
Dave Kelly,
got their established place in the Park End. That was a very special moment for me, because we always go to see them before the match and obviously take a donation, but just go for a chat, because they're just the most beautiful group of people that you could ever meet. People giving up their time to do that. They're just wonderful, wonderful people. And I think when they got established and they got that proper established spot in the corner, the first time we went, we were like, oh, this is great, isn't it? And that was a really special moment for me as well. And again, that's another great thing that we do as a community of Evertonians.
they're the proper Everton things, aren't they? We always say tongue-in-cheek, proper Everton when we get beat, or if I lose a tenner, proper Everton. But the real proper Everton things are the heartbeat and what we do around here. And that probably brings us on to when this finally, it's never going to really go, because there's plans to keep Everton in this area, like part of the community, and they've got designs out there where there's still going to be things here. But the ground itself is unfortunately going to go. Everton won't play here. Are you ready for that?
No.
No, I'm not either.
I won't lie. I mean, Bramley Moor, the new Everton Stadium looks amazing, and it's going to turn into an iconic stadium. It's on the waterfronts. You know, they've got the tower. It's, you know, it's in a great spot. So that was a brilliant place to put it. And if you're going to knock down this place and rebuild, thank God we're going to be in a really iconic area. And the stadium is looking really, really good. But no one's ready to go from here, are they? I mean, you know all the reasons for it, and I get annoyed. You know, I have to battle my way through like 500 people to try and get to the toilet at half time, and you get a warm pint at half time because the snack bar where we sit isn't big enough to have proper fridges, and etc. and all that sort of stuff drives me insane. But leaving Goodison, leaving Walton, leaving this area is heartbreaking. My favourite team in London is Arsenal, just because I've been to so many great Everton games there. And we were down in London a couple of years ago, and we went to see Highbury.
It still looks a little bit like Highbury, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, you go inside, and two of the stands are flats, and then the pitch is a park.
That's the clock end's still there, isn't it? That was listed.
And it's a garden that belongs to the people who live in the flats, and they've got keys to get into it. But you can walk in, and it's incredible. And the stands, are still there, and they've got flats in them and function rooms. It's amazing. But then you walk outside, and there's pubs closed down, and and it's really sad. And I love the new Arsenal stadium; it's great. But I hate the fact it's called after an airline.
It's the Weald now, isn't it?
I know. But I loved Highbury, and I love the area around. It's my favourite part of London. But there are boarded up pubs, and you just look and you go, no.
We've done a show with Dave Bond, who runs the Winslow, and he said that the areas around here, some of the pubs and some of I think even the cafes are trying to get together and get a shuttle at first from here to Bramley Moor, do everything to keep it alive and try to reach out to the club. So, logistically, Everton do need to move. My head is with that. My head is like, I want my son, I want his son to have great times. I want them to see what you've just described to me, because I've not really seen it. So it's all for the future. But my heart just says this place is... You look back at memories and you think...
I mean, I'm still not over the fact that they don't train at Belfield anymore. So really...
Of course, yeah. Have you been there with the houses there? Have you drove through there? That's crazy.
And I'm really not over that.
Yeah.
So
this one's going to be a big one.
And that must be 15 years or something, and I'm still not over that. Yeah. No, I'm not going to deal with it very well. As I was driving up just to come today, and obviously I do the same on match day. Well, I park over that way, and there is a legacy. There's the school. There's the hub. There's the People's Place. There is going to be an Everton legacy in this area.
Yeah. Which is important.
It's very important, particularly for this part of Liverpool. It's really, really important. But as much as my heart breaks for leaving this place, and all the memories and all the stories that my granddad told me, and my great granddad told me, and my dad's told me, and my mum's told me, and Nana's told me, for all those stories that they've told me, and all the ghosts that there are here for me, my heart breaks as much as it does for County Road and for Walton. And I really, really hope that as a city that is taken on board, and as a city there is a will among the city's leaders and the city region's leaders to ensure that this area does not get forgotten and it does not get left behind because Everton's gone, because that would be as much of the tragedy as Goodison not being here anymore.
No, I completely agree. I'm just looking around now. The way you're saying, I'm looking around this place, and it's going to be a sad moment when that final game at Goodison. I don't think I'll be quite ready for that. I'm sure you're the same, but it's been really great to speak to you and just talk about some memories, and my brain's going. I think we're recording this on a Friday evening. I'm definitely getting a glass of red wine tonight just to reminisce on against my Everton moments, and when my little boy goes to bed, wife goes to bed, I'll probably get in a YouTube hole and watch some Everton stuff and all the boring stuff that us lads do. But I do want to say thank you, first of all, to Everton Football Club for not only allowing us to record here at Goodison, but also just be some great guys with us. There's a guy standing over there called Ashley. Fantastic. He's been really kind. Mo, who works the fan engagement. What we do always say on our podcast is, no matter how we feel about certain things at the football club, and I've got massive opinions on what's right and wrong here, there's good people who work here. And to allow us, me and Mel, to come in and do our podcast, we do want to thank Everton Football Club for allowing us into one of my most favourite places. And I'm just trying to take it all in. And I'm probably going to get a bit emotional. I'll be here in 2 weeks flipping when we're getting beat 1-0. But such is the life of Everton.
I know, and I'm just looking at the names, Philip Carter and Howard, two really good men. Good Evertonians and good men and good football people, and sad. It's sad.
We'll have to get together before the final game and maybe have a couple of glasses of wine and cry together. But thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me.
And anyone who's watching on the YouTube, we are over at Across the Park PC on Instagram and Twitter. If you're listening on the audio podcast, please go over to YouTube and give us a subscribe. But from myself, Ian Mills, from Mel Harvey, live at Goodison Park. Thank you so much for watching. As always, up the toffees.